Have you ever found dead bodies or human burials? Of course I have. The first time it was probably on the memory watch with the red searchers. Did you first go to the woods with a particular goal like finding burials or weapons or whatever interests you? Yes, SS items are some of the most expensive items you can find. There is absolutely no cultural value, no monuments, it's just a forest. Why are you hiding your face then? Hey everyone, great to see you again and welcome to a new People Pro video. And our guest today is this man dressed in camouflage and wearing a mask and a cap. We got a fork and a plate on the table, so we're probably gonna eat along the way. So what are we talking about today? Hello everyone, so today we're filming an episode about the Black Diggers. We're gonna talk about what that means and who those people are. Okay, so Black Diggers, I guess in general the phrase probably means people who do illegal excavations, is that right? Yes, that is correct. This phrase basically came from television. That is, all the people who are involved in illegal excavations, they're called the Black Diggers. To make it clear for everyone, there are so-called white diggers, red diggers or red searchers, and there are also black diggers. And so today we're going to mainly focus on the people who do war diggings, that is, excavations of World War II battlefield sites. And I've been doing that for 7 years now, so I'll probably tell you something interesting during our talk today. You mentioned red diggers and white diggers, so who exactly are the reds and who are the whites? Yeah, so those are different types, but you can't really draw a line. So red searchers are those who work on the Red Army soldiers. That is, they find them on the battlefield sites, they identify them and look for their relatives to rebury them. That is, they're actively engaged in military patriotic work. White diggers are basically kind of the same. There's no particular distinction, I guess, but black diggers are those who dig the war sites and they look for trophies and nothing else interests them. Also, all the people who dig for antiquities can be called black diggers. For example, those who are looking for ancient coins. And treasures? Yes, treasures, they can be found in old houses, in the fields. There are also so-called attic diggers. I've basically tried all of that. But I've decided to focus on war diggings. So you're hunting for war artifacts. What artifacts did you happen to find? What's their value? And where did you sell them? Well, basically their value is not particularly high due to the fact that they are just basic things, like regular things. Also, some of them are not preserved really well. That is, everything rots, time doesn't wait. So yeah, I mean, I used to keep some things for my personal collection that are worthwhile. I kept them in preservation. And if I found something that is in worse condition, I would sell it, and that's how my trips paid for themselves. So what's the most expensive thing you've ever sold? My whole collection. And what exactly was in it? Well, it's gonna take a long time if I had to list. Well, basically a little bit of everything, like buckles, decorations, hamlets, something like that. Dishware as well? Yes, dishware, all the ammunition, personal belongings, so basically everything that the soldiers had on them. And so, how much did you get for it? Well, probably around $1,700. So just 1,700, correct? Yes. And how long have you been gathering it? The whole time, I guess. So 7 years? Yes, almost. Was there anything that you found that was of great value, like one item of a kind worth, say, $1,000? Or you can't find such things at war sites? Of course you can. Maybe it's just that I didn't get to find one. But something worth $1,000? No, I haven't. Then what was the most expensive thing? It was a hamlet I found in good condition, also an SS buckle, that's it. So how much is a hamlet? Well, it depends on the state of preservation, and it also depends on who it belonged to. If it's like a regular military, that is Wehrmacht, well, it depends on the preservation. It may be 3, 5, 10, maybe 15,000. But that's like a regular dig. I mean, there are some items that are home preserved and they're worth a lot more. And what are the most expensive war items in general, like anything related to SS or something like that? Yes, SS items are the most expensive ones, and also SS things are the most counterfeited, by the way. The reasons are quite complex, but generally speaking, there were regular SS troops, there were Waffen SS troops, and their stuff is very expensive because they are very rare and hard to find. And secondly, because very few of them were really involved in battles on Russian territory. I mean, times fewer than regular Wehrmacht troops. So, for all of those reasons, they are very expensive. And naturally, a lot of people are on the hunt for them. Some find them, some don't. Have you ever found dead bodies, human graves, and how did that make you feel? Well, of course I have. Let's start from the fact that I took part in the Red Search, or so-called memory walks. That is, I helped to rebury the remains of Soviet soldiers. And so, yeah, of course I had to deal with human remains. But the main goal of our search was German burials. There's even a special name for that. We call it blank beds. So blank beds are graves. Well, yes, I mean, a regular person wouldn't ever see it. It's either like a regular field or a clearing in the woods. It's already covered with trees, so no one will find it there. There are no crosses, no graves, nothing. But if you dig there, you will find it. So how do you know if there is a grave and where you should dig? Maps and reports. There are a lot of them, those burials. It's just that they are really hard to find. So either the materials are not available or it's just very hard to locate them on site. They're not just like pits in the ground and you can't see them right away. The toughest looters, so to say, were the Americans at the end of the war. They had a clear understanding of the value of all of the trophies, so they did everything to move the most of them to America. And so because of that, the largest collections of German hamlets, some weapons, awards are all in America. And they also took German maps and aerial photographs with them. You mean maps of the burial sites? Yes, the burials and the aerial photography. The Germans were doing recon all the time, and they photographed their positions, and they photographed the positions of others, and it was at a very large scale. And all of that was archived, and now all of those archives were moved to America. Okay, America aside, but how do diggers and you personally get access to this information? Is it archives, libraries, or the internet? Yeah, we just buy the photographs that I mentioned on the internet. We pay for that, and then we put it on a current map. Everyone has been using this method for a long time, so you just put it on a modern map, and then you go to the forest using GPS, and that's it. And what was it like when you first found a human corpse? So the first time it was on Memory Watch with the Red Searchers. We were digging a crater. The story is that the locals were dragging dead soldiers there after the battles, and according to all of the locals, they had to be there. So we did some digging and we discovered them and we started to take them out. But out of 30 to 40 people there was probably only one soldier with a medallion on him. A Soviet soldier, right? And the rest were just nameless skulls and bones? Yes, there is no way to identify them, because our soldiers can be identified by a medallion and it may just not survive. There is a capsule like this size, and it's made of ebony, and there is a paper note inside it, so naturally it's not really well preserved. Sometimes there is a pile of remains and there is a medallion in the middle, and you can't really tell who it belonged to. There are some belongings that are signed, but again, it's not 100% proof, because someone could have passed these things on to somebody else. Or they could have been found. Right. And what about the German soldiers? How were they marked? Well, in case of the German soldiers, it was a little different. It was a lot more clear. For instance, they all had badges on their necks. And so when a person died, it was broken into two halves. One half was left on the dead soldier, and the other half was filed to the list of the dead. And that's why it often happens that if you dig up a burial of German soldiers, they all lie there with broken badges. Some are not, though. Also, sometimes they found interesting things in German burials. The Germans sometimes put bottles with notes in it where there was all the information about the person, where he was born, the address of his parents, how old he was, when he was doing his military service, and when he died. So it's like a memorial of some sort. Sort of, yes. It was quite interesting. I was 20 years old when I was digging, and I found a soldier who was also 20 years old, but he died in like 1942. So when you discovered human corpse, were you scared at all, or? I didn't feel anything. I just saw it and I went on digging. We dig German burials because of the trophies. And the reason for that is that it was at that time the most technologically advanced army. And what I mean by that is that their ammunition and equipment were always like very well stocked. It had a lot of like different pouches, bowlers, flasks, belts, and also there were some like badges, tags, and some personal items, and even some military rings. So all of those things are really interesting to dig. And sometimes you can get a lot from a single grave. But on the flip side, everything you find with corpses is probably going to be very poorly preserved. So is it just because they have been in the ground for a very long time, or because they were on a person? Well, the body is decompositing next to it, and so all the finds are not preserved well, except for like gold, silver, golden teeth, for example. And so what do you do after you find human remains, for example? I understand if you are a part of official search battalion, then the goal is to identify them and look for their relatives to rebury them. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. And what if you're going on your own, like as a black digger unofficially, and you found, say, a Soviet soldier or a German soldier? What do you do with them? When I go on my own, I don't dig the Soviet burials. I'm scouting the positions of German burials, and Soviets are not supposed to be there. And as for Germans, I dig in the ground, I take everything I loot, and I put it back together. I cover it with soil, and then I move on. And have you ever did that by yourself, not as part of a team? No, I haven't. You get bored really fast and you have no one to talk to, so there's always like 2 or 3 of us. In other words, we always move as a group. And do other diggers mostly move as a group? Well, mostly yeah, because first of all, anything can happen to you in the forest. You can easily get lost. Unless you already know the location, of course. When there's a team, or even when there are just 2 people, is just more interesting. You can talk, and the trips are always very, very long. And also the thing is that we spend most of our time digging dugouts, and you can't do it on your own. Dugouts like bunkers? Yes, you have to dig there as a group because it can be 2 or 3 meters deep, and sometimes we even dig with 2 shovels. Like one person is standing up on the ground and the other one just throws soil up and he throws it away further because you can't shovel it more than like 3 meters. And so how many dead people have you ever found in one dugout or like inside one bunker? No, we never found them in bunkers or dugouts, but if we're talking about graves, maybe like 30 to 40 at a time. Those were Germans, right? Yes, and as for the Red Army soldiers, we also found, I guess, 30 to 40 at a time. And how much does your metal detector cost? I bought it a long time ago. I don't know if they produce them anymore or not. I think it was around $250 to $300. Is it special for ferrous or non-ferrous metals? It's for both ferrous and non-ferrous metals, and there's a thing called, I guess, pinpointer that is in it. So you're moving it and the signal is there under your coil, and it helps you to find the center of the target, the middle of where you have to dig. Of course, there are devices over 1500, they go deeper and they're more precise, but you don't really need one. Those ones are probably for treasure hunters. Yes, yes, those are for people who are geeky about it, but mostly you can start with any basic level of device. If the place is fruitful, even like a simple device can help you loot a lot. I just had a few questions from the subscribers asking about the minimal cost of a metal detector to start digging right away. Did you say like $250? Yeah, maybe even cheaper. You can even buy a used one. In the 90s, some diggers even used army metal detectors that were only capable of mine detection. But things were different back then. And have you found weapons in working conditions or ammo, for example? As for weapons and ammo, well, they all can be restored. They're not in perfect condition. Well, some people find them in perfect condition, but I haven't. So yeah, I found ones and I could even do something with them, like restore them, but I don't need that. And you could go to jail for that. You mean even if you get parts of the weapon? Yes, some parts of the weapons, like combat parts, but they're regarded as weapons too, so officially that's a crime. And what about shells, ammo, ammunition, stuff like that? Yes, a lot of those, and bunkers full of shells and mines. But they're in crappy condition. No, they were in good condition, though I wouldn't ever use them for combat, but they were kind of fresh. So basically, we took a few pictures, we looked at them, and just left them there. And wasn't that dangerous, like you're digging and you can hit a mine or a shell? No, if you don't keep hitting the same spot over and over again, if you're just walking around the woods doing some digging, you're not gonna get blown up. So you're fine, but the ones who are getting blown up are the ones who try to take them apart for trophies. They're all filled with TNT, and if you start melting TNT or taking apart the shells, of course you're gonna get blown up. And are there many people in your field who specifically hunt for shells for TNT, so maybe later they could sell it to terrorists or catch fish? No, I don't have anything to do with dickheads like that. I mean, why would you do it? Officially, it's a crime. I used to melt TNT multiple times, but what for? So that the police come to them first and then to me? Who needs that? So then why would you melt TNT? For trophies, of course. I mean, if there's a loaded mine and I want to put it on a shelf like a souvenir, so I take it apart and melt it and bring it home. And so it's just an MMG casing, it's not dangerous, you can keep it at home. So you mean you did that not to get the TNT, but just to get the casing of a mine? Yes, to defuse it, to deactivate it so that it's not illegal anymore. But some people, they do it right in the woods on the run and sometimes they get blown up. And so how do you take a mine apart and melt TNT out of it? Well, it depends on the type of the mine and how it is built. I mean, there are different types of mines like landmines, anti-tank mines, mortar mines, smoke mines, so it depends on the type. I've seen mortar mines, they have tails, right? Yes, my grandmother lived in Belarus near Svetlogorsk, and there must have been a lot of combat action because every time we used to dig up the garden there in spring when you plant potatoes, we found about 20 mines over the course of 10 years. That's typical, yes. I mean, basically we dig there every year, and still every spring you find something in the land that has been plowed over and over. Maybe the ground is pushing it out. I've heard a myth like that. No, I've heard that too. It doesn't push it out. You just dig it over and over, and sometimes it rains and makes something visible, tails or something. So that's normal. It's very typical for land where the war took place. They're like pear-shaped and they have tails coming out of them and they're half rotten and it's a small mine about this size. Well, they can be different. There are actually a few types of them. Yeah, those are like mortar shells. My grandma used to tell me that they had a terrible whistling sound during the war. Well, I haven't launched it, I don't know, but probably it whistled because it has a tail to resist the air. They can be small, about 37 millimeters up to 120. I mean, they're just like this. Yes, I've seen the smaller ones. Yes, those are probably 50s. They're the most typical ones. And do you know anyone who accidentally struck a mine while trying to deactivate it? No, I didn't get to know any people like that. The guys that I work with and the people I know are always playing smart. But sometimes I hear that somebody hit a mine, and it happens all the time, even with the experienced ones. So we covered the topic of black diggers more or less. It's clear that you guys have your own interests as artifacts of war, for instance, but what is the point of the official search parties then? Like the reds and the whites that you mentioned. Well, their primary task is to find the soldiers and rebury them. So patriotic work, and there are always volunteer groups that go out with them. And such groups are coming mainly from some museums, so basically it's kind of military patriotic organizations and military patriotic work. But of course, they also look for artifacts and trophies, and they take what they find with them. Sometimes to bring something to a school museum, for instance, but sometimes some of them take their trophies home, of course. So there's really no line to draw between the black diggers and the red diggers. They just have papers to do it, and we don't. And they rebury the remains, and you don't. Well, I personally don't, but some black diggers I know, they go out with reds and they cooperate. If they find one, they give it to them. So basically, not everybody does that, but a lot of people do. And what about coins, like coins and treasures? Have you worked on them? Well, finding treasures is hard. It's mainly just luck, either you're lucky or not. And as for coins, yes, I used to look for coins. I would climb into old houses in winter, and I would look for coins in the attics. It's just like you're sitting with a sieve and you fill it up, you put a dust mask on, you dress up, and you start looking for some coins. Then there are always some coins. It's fun. But I just did it when I had nothing else to do. So those were imperial coins. Yes, imperial coins, also early Soviet coins, they all have a certain minimum value. I used to collect them, and I had a small collection of my own. And so did people mostly hide coins in the attics, like they buried them in the ceiling or what? I don't really know how they got there, but I found a lot of them there. So either people used to climb up there and lose them, or they were doing some laundry there, and after washing they forgot to take them out of the pockets maybe. So it's not fully clear how they got there. So was it a one-time occasion that you found coins in the attic, or did it happen many times? I didn't really do it a lot, looting old houses, but a few times I guess. Sometimes I found coins under the baseboards, but I'm not really into that kind of search. I'm more into like war digging. And black diggers and treasure hunters who look for trophies, do you hang out on the same websites and discussion boards? Do you hang out in the same crowd with them? Well, the websites are the same for everyone, it's just they have different topics and sections, and sometimes people will hang out here and there as well. It depends. So, where do you guys sell whatever you find and dig up all of your trophies? The forums where we hang out. But do you sell remotely or you meet with a customer in person? It depends. If they're in a different city, I send it to them, but if they're here, we can meet up. And what if they're undercover cops, for instance? Well, the fact is that I haven't sold anything illegal. And what about like a bayonet knife that's a cold weapon? Well, yeah, you can technically sell them, but I wasn't doing much of it. I used to sell knives, but I was basically selling them in bulk just to pay for my trips. So I would collect them and then give them to one person in bulk, that's it. Have you ever found bayonets in perfect condition? Well, not perfect, but good, of course. And how much is a German one worth, for example? Like average price of a simple one? Well, let's say a bayonet knife for a Mauser in good condition, maybe like $90, I guess. Honestly, I don't remember the exact prices. Maybe a better one could be like $180 to $200. So not that expensive. I actually thought the prices are way higher. No, well, there are some dirks that are very rare and diggers don't find them in soil anymore. Those can be very expensive. The dirks that admirals had, right? Well, not necessarily. The Hitler Jurgens had dirks, the Pioneer Kids, the SS had dirks, the police had dirks, and other departments as well. But they are extremely, extremely rare. So now they're very hard to find, and they're basically found somewhere in the northwest of Russia, in Kaliningrad. where they were dumped, and you can find the whole dumps there. And have you ever found cannons, howitzers, a tent maybe, an airplane somewhere in the swamp, for instance? No, only some machine guns. In good condition? No, no, only in bad condition, at least in my case. So does your every trip result in getting something valuable, or that's not the case? No, mostly not. Sometimes you work on 2 to 3 dugouts during one trip, or one dugout but very, very deep one, and sometimes you end up with nothing. And that happens a lot. So that happens, and that happens quite often. To our estimations, 1 out of 10 dugouts ends up being successful. By successful, I mean that we find something and it's in good condition. And sometimes you just find something, but it's not preserved. And sometimes you go really deep, but there are no finds, so that happens. So can you say that it's rather like a hobby, not pursuit for money, and you can't get rich off of that? Of course you don't get rich off of that. It's just a hobby and for whoever is into it, whoever collects. Basically everybody gathers their own collections and sells them sometimes. Or trade them. Or that, yes. So after all, it's just a hobby, for sure. And what's this interesting cap that you're wearing with this symbol? Well, that's from German uniform circa 1943. So did you dig it up somewhere? No, of course not. It's a modern replica. This is just how I went to the woods for some digging wearing this uniform. So like Red Army searchers wear their uniform, like Soviet, Russian uniform, and we go to the forest like this, wearing this uniform. I don't really know how to explain that this is absolutely not propaganda of any regime. It's for basically it's for immersing yourself in that atmosphere, because we, as diggers, we have our own swag and we have our own things. I mean, I used to walk around with all my trophy things on me. I had like a German belt with a buckle, a kettle, a glass for a flask that I used to drink tea from. I had a spoon fork that I used to eat with. I smoked with the mouthpiece that I dug up, so things like that. Yeah, that's a nice fork. Yeah, they also had a spoon fork, like a camping fork. Soldiers used to eat with it. Was it okay for you to eat with a fork or a spoon from a dead person? Not at all, you just wash it and you eat with it. I'm sitting here alive, right? It's been there for a long time, so nothing's gonna happen. I see. That's very interesting. So what was the most unusual find in your career as a black digger? I don't know if I can call it a trophy, because all the soldiers had it, but when you find it, it's always very funny. So it's probably going to be a condom of a German soldier. So they already had it at that time. Yes, of course, all the soldiers had condoms. The military were conscious about it so they wouldn't get sick on the Eastern Front. They were scared of syphilis, I guess, because there was no AIDS back then. Well, I guess so. When we find them, they're already rotten, but yeah, it's kind of funny still. But do they look like modern ones? Yeah, they're exactly the same, but there's only like this ring that's what's left of them. And what's the wrapping like? Is it tinfoil or paper? They must have had paper because there was nothing left of the wrapping. So that was probably the most interesting or unusual thing. Everything else was just like regular equipment, all kinds of junk. Like not worth anything? Yes, something that has no value, whatever you might call it. Do black diggers have any gatherings or meetings? Yes, they do, I gotta tell you. Like on the forum where we hang out, they organize the black diggers gatherings. They call them blue rallies, mostly because they just met up and they got drunk together and didn't do any digging. And basically most of them go out to the woods just to hang out and just walk around there like they're so cool. And after things like that, we get messages on the forums that our digging skills are poor. We try to explain them how it should really work, but they don't seem to understand. And as for gatherings, yes, I didn't go there though, because what am I gonna do there? Drink vodka with them? And have you ever called for bomb guys or miners? Well, the Red Searchers, after Memory Watch events, they call for miners. But the thing is that miners don't go, like, in the middle of nowhere into the woods. I mean, if they happen to be around, they come. Or in the field, maybe? Yes, in the field, in the woods, after the memory watch, they go around and blow things up. So that some random mushroom picker doesn't strike a mine by accident? No, I mean, if mines just lay there on the ground, nothing's gonna happen, they won't blow up. The problem is, for example, if I dig something up and I just put it there, and people would start coming and start poking, and, there are a lot of stupid people. Or they try to take something home and they take it apart, and, they have neighbors. And have you ever had to run away from the excavation site, like do a hit and run and escape? No, I guess not. There were times when we were doing the digging and we met like either locals or hunters, and sometimes we even meet people like us. That happened a couple of times. But everybody was okay and everything was peaceful, and also, we had the caps on and the uniform, so nobody was trying to start anything there. We had a chat and they asked what we were doing and we said that we were doing the digging, and that's all. And they just went by. So basically no one is gonna run at you in the woods, like no cops, unless you're doing something crazy. If you just go quietly, you dig, you change your clothes, and you leave, that's gonna be okay. So no need to draw attention to yourself, because nobody really knows anything about the black diggers. People only know some facts that they got from television, and there's a lot of controversial nonsense there. So yeah, if people start seeing somebody digging, they might complain. So of course you shouldn't be blowing anything up. You just get to the spot, you dig, and then you go home. So it's like what drug addicts say, like if you're doing it, do it quietly. And in your case, if you're digging, dig quietly. Yeah, I mean, why draw an attention to yourself? Because no one's gonna understand anything anyway, and the cops come with searches only to those who go too public about it. Like on social media, I mean, we posted something on forums about the diggings, but we didn't take anything, so it was there. Some people just start to walk around dressed up like I am right now, and of course they will come to you. I mean, if you walk in the streets like that, you're probably brainless, and you're probably dragging some rotten minds to your house, so you're going to jail for that. For arms possession? Yes, and they have no value, and you might also get charged for terrorism. And did your parents know what you were doing, and how did they feel about it? I mean, they were okay. At first, they were a bit scared that I might get blown up, but I kind of explained them everything, and they were fine. So it was like I just went for a walk on my day off. So you're into history, and you've seen battlefields with your own eyes. Would you say that the Soviet army won not by their military skills, but simply by numbers, like outnumbering the opponent? Well, yes, I guess you can say so. I mean, there were a lot fewer Germans back then, and yeah, I think so too. And the combat skills of the Germans were way better, right? Yes, but you can also say that they lost because they had subtleties in every single item, military item that they had. I mean, every item had their own purpose, like they had a specific buckle for this, or a specific strap for that, or a specific pendant for this, or a specific hook for that. They even had wine and mineral water in glass, like you have to get ammunition to the war, and they had, glass water. Like glass bottles? Yes, for real, they had water in small glass bottles. So there always would be a pile of bottles like canned goods, cheese, some kind of foil, cigarette packs at their positions. They were all over the place. They had an idle way of life there. Yeah, they were doing good, way better than our soldiers. So how many people buy things from the war times now, and what kind of money is in that market? Well, I mean, there are a lot of collectors out there, and it really depends on the kind of objects. Like all of these regular digs, they're not worth much. Again, it depends on the state of preservation. Maybe some awards, some serious war items, they are worth quite a lot. And especially those which are home preserved. People buy them, they're popular. So when you were talking about the SS items, you said there are a lot of fake artifacts, fake items? Yes, there are. Some people make fakes, and some even try to make them look old and pass off as original. So they're questionable. But yeah, there's a lot of them, of course. So it's basically like a modern replica, but it's artificially aged. Yes, that's right. And sometimes it is even more interesting than that. I mean, I heard that someone found stamps for German badges, and we come across things like that on the forums. So sometimes you may find stamps for badges, and sometimes you may even find dummy badges, which are badges that have no info on them. So, I mean, imagine if a soldier lost it and it was stamped again, and so that he would always have it with him. And so that's how you can find a dummy badge, and then you can stamp SS marks on it. So now it's an SS badge, but it's not original. And so if it's made from an original dummy badge and it's stamped with an original stamp, it would be very difficult to identify if it's real or not. And do you have a lot of returning customers, like collectors who hunt for military items and want to gather a huge collection, for instance? Yes, I do. Again, they're not really public, they just sit quietly and gather their collections. But yeah, there's a lot of them. Are those Russians or Russian speaking collectors, or are they from abroad? Both Russians and the foreigners, many people are into collecting. And as for the foreigners, how do you sell stuff abroad? Well, personally, I haven't sold anything abroad. I just do it on websites which are inside of Russia. I also got a question from the subscribers, which was quite weird. Have you ever digged in a real cemetery? What do you think they mean by that? Like some old cemetery, what's the point of digging there? I don't see the point either. So no, no cemeteries. I mean, somewhere nearby maybe we were digging, but only because there was a battlefield site. But the cemetery, what's the point? And what can you find in modern graves? And that's grave robbery, and that's serious. Yeah, that's blasphemy. It's one thing to dig in the woods where there are no crosses or graves, just flat ground, and it's a whole different thing to dig in a real cemetery, when you see all the crosses, and anyway, there's nothing to take there. Do many of the people that you know turn over treasures to the government? Or there are no people as stupid as that, so to say? I don't know. I saw a news story once that a man found something and then he handed it over. And also, a guy I know once found a real treasure. They were on a regular trip. I wasn't there, but they told me. They told me that they found the treasure. It was imperial coins, and there was a lot of them, so it was a very, very cool find. And of course, they kept it, because why would you give it away? There was an interesting case in Russia recently for all those wondering if people turn in treasures or not. So a man found a treasure, and I know this from news reports. It was a big treasure, like $1 to $4 million approximately. So he gave it to the police for safekeeping, so that he would get his 25% from the state after they estimate it. Yeah, I guess I've heard that too, and there was probably nothing left from the treasure. No, they lost it altogether, allegedly when they sent it to a museum for estimation. And then he sued them for quite a good amount of money, like $1 million or something like that. So sometimes treasures get stolen. Well, I would probably do the same if I were the cops. Like, some stupid guy brought us the treasure, let's have it all. Well, yeah, you see, and the guy wasn't really that stupid after all. Yeah, that happens. He still got his money, but in a different way. Yeah, but suing somebody also takes a lot of time, and it's not that easy. And are there any female diggers in your community? Well, we don't have any, but the red searchers do. I've seen female diggers go on trips with them. Not many of them, though. Yeah, definitely not many. Probably wives and girlfriends mostly. I guess that's about right. So, the activity of black diggers has a lot of myths around it. I think everyone thinks that there is a huge amount of money there and always dead bodies, mines, and treasures. I also had a question about the amber room, like do you dig amber in Kaliningrad? And you're sitting here telling me that this is more like a hobby for you, and it's not very profitable and you can't earn from that. Well, yeah, for sure. You can hardly even call it profitable. You basically spend more money and time traveling, searching, looking for treasures. And again, you don't find something every other trip. A lot of the trips we go to are just for nothing. And basically the most important thing is not to drag home weapons or explosives. You should just do your thing quietly, and that's all. If you bring it home, it's already illegal. And also don't try to take mines apart for your safety. Of course, you shouldn't. You shouldn't do it. Just go to an exhibition and buy something that's already been digged. They're not expensive there. It's all for sale. We have markets in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and everything is sold there. Is it original? Both original and new, anything you want. There's a whole aisle there on the flea market, and there are all those Hamlet shells and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it's easier if you have money, you just go and buy something. Yeah, if you want that mine so much, just go and buy it and tell everyone you found it. Or a bayonet or something. Or put it in a hole in the ground and take a picture and tell everyone, look what I found. Yeah, and dress up like that. So guys, to summarize the talk, if you're into history, if that's a hobby for you, if you're into World War II, then yes, go and dig something, but do it quietly, of course, so nobody knows about it. You're not going to make a lot of money off of it. At the same time, you don't need big investments. So if you like it, if you're excited, then go do it. So you don't regret that period of time of your life? No, of course not. Those were great years. And what do you do or plan to do now? I'm doing different kinds of things. Is it business or just regular work? Yeah, it's a business, you can say so. And do you have education with history major, maybe? No, I just have a technical degree. So excavations was just a hobby and it had nothing to do with your education? Correct. I see. Okay, so thank you so much for coming today. Thanks for having me. So we have debunked quite a few myths today, and as we learned, there's nothing super profitable or complicated or scary there, and you shouldn't be afraid of those guys, the black diggers. Some people excavate remains of soldiers and they rebury them, but these people do basically the same, they just don't rebury them, but mostly because it's not really profitable. You guys just don't want to waste your time on that. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video till the end. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and leave a very interesting comment in the comment section and get this set from Luftwaffe. Thank you all for being here with us today, and I'll see you in the next video.